Hey, this is Jono. Now I want to tell you the amazing story of GitLab and how their openness, transparency, and community really helped them when things went sour. Now, if you're not familiar with GitLab, when they first came out, they were kind of seen as a little bit of a knockoff of GitHub. They were basically copying a lot of what was going on in GitHub, and it didn't feel particularly original. But GitLab had one really distinctive difference, and that is that they invested right from day one in their community. So first of all, GitLab was open source, which GitHub was not, but also they applied the community principles of openness and transparency and collaboration in every element of what they were doing inside of the company as well. For example, you can go today and check out the GitLab handbook, and when you print that handbook out, it spans over 2,000 pages, and that is basically the running manual for everything that they do inside of GitLab, not just in terms of how they build GitLab, but also how many of the teams inside of GitLab, such as marketing and sales and product and all these different teams operate. Now, bit by bit, month by month, year by year, GitLab started getting some real traction. A lot of people started using it, and one of the reasons why people loved it is because, you know, with GitHub, you could basically submit a feature request, but with GitLab, you could actually build the feature out and submit it as something that potentially would go into GitLab itself. Now, these chickens really came home to roost in 2017 when some engineer at GitLab basically fat-fingered an update and pretty much the whole thing went down. Now, this was disastrous. A lot of people who were working in GitLab, who were building software, who were working on products as part of their companies, really couldn't work very effectively because the whole thing had gone down. Sure, they could work in Git, but to really collaborate with other people in their teams and in their projects, they really needed GitLab to be there. Now, how do most companies deal with a situation like this? Well, first of all, they notify you that something's going on and that they're looking into it. And then usually kind of a week passes once they've fixed it and they come back with some PR team with a groveling apology and saying that they will strive to do better in the future. And it all feels very distant and kind of just doesn't really connect with their audience. Now, GitLab did not do this, right? And the first step of this journey was when they put out this tweet, which basically said, "We accidentally deleted production data." Now, first of all, who would ever write that onto a tweet? We accidentally deleted something? Most companies would sit in around a boardroom, or in the GitLab case, a virtual boardroom, and they'd wordsmith every individual word in that particular tweet. But the GitLab folks were like, let's just frickin' tell people what happened, right? We accidentally deleted some production data. But what was even more remarkable was the second part of the tweet, where they basically spun up a Google Doc, and as they were diagnosing and resolving this issue, you could sit there with a bucket of popcorn and watch what was happening in real time. Now, this was just unheard of back then, and frankly, it's unheard of right now. It was just a brand new, remarkable level of openness that we'd never really seen before. Now, that tweet and the way GitLab was responding to this was just indicative of how much they'd embraced openness, transparency, and community. And if you want to build an amazing community around your product or your service or your project, you should absolutely check out today's video sponsor, which is School. Now, School is a pretty amazing community platform with a whole load of features baked into it. It's got forums and discussions and direct messaging. It's got great metrics in there. You can run online courses and trainings and masterminds. So if you're building a community of fans or a community of people who are using your product or your service, you should absolutely check out School. It's a really cool product. Go and click on the link down there in the video description to find out more. All right, so let's get back to the story. So GitLab are having some issues with their service. It's gone down. They've spun up this Google Doc so people can see what's going on. How do you think people responded? Now, you would imagine that on social media, which is let's be honest, a decrepit pit of people being mean to each other from time to time.
You know, they say if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. I'm sorry. Keep going. I don't know where that came from. Go ahead. Oh, I think there's a K in Knucklehead.
The people would not really react very well to this whole situation of GitLab going down. You'd imagine that people would just be absolutely going for them. Interestingly, the complete opposite reaction happened. So first of all, on Twitter, the hashtag #HugUps spun up, and all kinds of positive, supportive responses came pouring in. For example, this one, sending love and good feelings to GitLab, super impressed with your openness. This one, get back soon, GitLab, we love you and we need you. This one, lots of hug-ups to all the folks at GitLab, doing an amazing job at handling this incident. But what really, really blew me away when I was watching all of this unfold was this one. The incredibly awesome folks over at GitLab are live streaming a production database recovery. What? Live streaming a recovery? This, again, unheard of back then. Completely unheard of right now in today's climate of how companies tend to respond to these kinds of incidents. Now, why did GitLab get this positive, supportive response? Well, it's because for years they've been building social capital. Now, what is social capital? Well, the way you can think of it is that when you are working with a community and you're engaging with a community, you can think about that kind of connection point between you and your community like a piggy bank, right? Every time you do something nice for your community, whether it's you put a piece of content out there, you engage in an interesting conversation, you run an event, you gather their feedback, and you act on that feedback and you make some changes, whether you provide mentoring, every one of those individual little instances is like putting a coin into that piggy bank. And this piggy bank will grow and grow and grow the more you invest in your community's success, right? And what happens is it builds reciprocity, because then when something goes Dixie, like what happened here with GitLab, and everything goes down, instead of you having a piggy bank with barely any social capital in it, because it's overflowing with social capital from all the amazing work that GitLab had done with their community and their content, their openness and their handbook, it meant that the community was ready and willing to support them. Because for the community, it wasn't some faceless corporation having a bad day. It was a brother or sister having a bad day. And that's the reason why HugUp spun up on Twitter, and that's the reason why everybody was cheering GitLab along. To me, this is testament to the power of communities and the power of building a movement. Because when we treat people like equals, when we invest in their success, when we invest in making our audience, our community's life better, then we're a partnership. We're not just this kind of horrible divide between you and your community. And GitLab, I think, will go down in history as one of the finest examples of putting this into practice. Now, if you want to build an amazing community around your product or service, you should totally check out my Community Leadership Core Accelerator. This is where we provide hands-on coaching, training, and accountability that's all tailored exactly to your company's needs, and it helps you to deliver clear, consistent results every quarter with way less stress and frustration. If you're interested in finding out more, click on the link down there in the video description, where you can book a call with us and we can listen to what you want to achieve, what problems you're having, and we can provide you some really concrete next steps on that call, okay? So with that in mind, thank you for listening to the amazing GitLab story. Peace out.